All right, we are live again. So
Okay.
I just want to thank again Ryan for the amazing presentations. So as a first time listener, like I could think about possible questions one could have after watching your presentations, and I'll try to cover from that aspect. So first is you shared how one could get a really high APY on DeFi platform and by holding those tokens. So can you elaborate like how they're making such high APY and why traditional banks can't offer us that much?
Well, I don't know the secret sauce behind everything here, but I do know that a lot of these coins will pay a certain interest. Um, so, like Algorand, for example, I think at the beginning of the year, just their standard wallet was paying like 8 something%, and the Coinbase wallet was paying 8%. So obviously, the more you had, the more you could, more interest you could make. And so I feel like they're doing that somehow. They're somehow pooling all these resources together and making interest off to the side. And then there, as a thank you to the people who are providing liquidity and actually making their model run here, they're giving some of that back to the community. And that's these percentages, the APYs. So that's part of it. I know that there's probably some more behind there, but that's the way I kind of understand it.
I see. And I really like the idea you discussed that you could buy like a laptop, NVIDIA 900, and if you're earning like let's say $2-3 per day, like you could cover your like initial cost like in a year or two, and then it has now become your passive income source. So I'm curious uh, to have this translation in architecture firm. We have really high graphics card like
Yep.
laptops for rendering and even students. And I'm wondering like after the office hours, those are just sitting idle. So
Mhm.
there are like what are the ways we could uh, possibly use this in our in our business?
Yep. So there's two sides to that coin. That doing this is very power intensive. It consumes a lot of energy. So I can't recommend that you just run your desktops full blast all at night on company equipment. Maybe if it's older equipment that you don't have in production, this is maybe a good alternate. And maybe you have a PV or a solar panel alternative energy source. Then this makes sense because I know a lot of firms out there are, architecture 2030 conscious. We don't want to make money but hurt the environment. I know a lot of architecture firms that are that way. So, but that being said, most architecture firms have pretty high-end graphics cards. I don't know if they work on the Quadro series. I know that's a now defunct series, but yeah, you want to stay in that more of that gaming card. Um, but yeah, it's something we thought of. Before you do that, though, again with the taxes and everything, make sure you clear it with the bosses of the company, because you have to get your CPA involved, and you'll probably want to get your attorney involved. Just as kind of a broad overview. Hey, we're going to go try this, and yeah, put a 3 month plan together and say, hey, this is an old computer, but it can probably do X amount of dollars in mining, and we can recoup those costs. So from a business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense. From a running the business standpoint, it makes a lot of sense to make money while you sleep. I guess is the point I'm getting at.
Got it. And also, it took me a while to understand like the real decentralized finance because like buying Ethereum or Robinhood on Robin like or Bitcoin on Robinhood is not as like buying like those decentralized like or those tokens and putting it in your wallet. I think that's where the real like advantage of decentralized finance where you could swap stake comes. And like can you like throw awareness about like what's the difference between just buying a share on Robinhood or Coinbase compared to wallet?
Sure. So you're asking what's the difference between like a regularly traded share versus a token asset? Um, yeah, that's a little bit outside of my wheelhouse in terms of like being a CPA or anything like that, or a financial advisor. But um, one of the ways that you look at it is they're two totally different things. And as a matter of fact, the SEC chairman, the SEC is trying to figure out right now, is that a security is essentially the question. So I don't have an answer for you because there's really not an answer yet. Stocks are stocks. You can buy IBM, you can buy Google, you can buy Facebook. Um, Tokens, the only one that I know that kind of got caught up was XRP, specifically because they did do one tiny little thing that I don't agree with, which is they use their sale of their token to finance the business, as opposed to the way Bitcoin and Ethereum did it. Well, Ethereum maybe is a little dicey there, but Bitcoin was like, hey, we're just selling tokens. It's not really growing a business. It's just a digital asset that's out there. So that's kind of a segue from your question, but um, the trading experience, they are nearly identical. I can buy a stock just as quickly as I can buy a fraction of a Bitcoin, right? So the feeling is the same, but they are wildly different right now, until Gary Gensler and the SEC can kind of figure out what these things are.
I see. And I really like the project about the air quality, and it really ties into one of the area I'm looking about, like data ownership and rewarding people and selecting uh, users select what data they want to share instead of like centralized platform owning the data, which we have in Facebook or YouTube. And one few other projects which even like I started was using sensor IoT data, where uh, you just basically connect to the Wi-Fi and anonymously it will share the data and you get reward tokens. And I have seen a few developments where you just buy a hotspot and basically your hotspot is connected to the uh, other Wi-Fi hotspots and you make like a decentralized Wi-Fi network and you get reward tokens based on the usage. So there are a lot of interesting developments in this space where user, based on the data they're providing, they're also getting reward, which is not in centralized.
Yep. And so I know a lot of companies out there, that are actually charging clients for this, and not they haven't looked into PlanetWatch yet, which does a lot of the same sensoring that you're talking about. It is an IoT device. I don't know if you can see it here on the screen. I know that screen is
Mhm.
probably pretty small, but yeah, I actually have the PlanetWatch official edition, and it'll give me all the VOC information, PM1, 2.5, 10, air temperature, humidity, CO2, all that stuff. And then, yeah, like you're saying, it rewards me for sharing that with them. And that's clearly the future. And everybody's been trying to grapple with it. So I'm excited that Planet Watch is taken on that challenge and definitely done something with it.
I see. And I have seen like a rising concern how Bitcoin and blockchain, the sustainability aspect, like are newer blockchains, for example, Algorand or Solana, more sustainable? Can you talk about that?
Um, yeah, so let me think of a couple that are out there. Like Hedera Hashgraph, HBAR. That one is, I want to say, carbon neutral. The energy required to actually run that process is 0.00001 of a something. I'd have to Google that. I don't know that off the top of my head. Algorand also incredibly low. They they purchase, I'm going to get the terminology wrong, carbon offset or carbon trade offset. So they're actually a carbon negative blockchain. So their energy consumption is so low, and with them offsetting it with carbon purchase, something like that, they're actually carbon negative, which is like kind of mind blowing because Bitcoin is the complete opposite of that. So there's the new technologies that are out there, almost DeFi 3.0 on Algorand. It's so far ahead. Just so interesting to see. Solana also like super fast transactions. They're struggling a little bit keeping their system online, but I think they'll figure it out and get going. But There's also very, very low energy compared to Ethereum proof of work. We didn't even talk about proof of stake versus proof of work. I mean, that's a whole hour long conversation right there. And you'll notice everything is switching to proof of stake. Solana's is like proof of history, which again might be what the issue is. But Ethereum making the switch to proof of stake, and Algorand, of course, being the world's first pure proof of stake. Um, with the way that they're doing things is just incredible. The things that are happening right now.
Yeah, and there's always like I saw there's a three circle diagram of speed, security, and cost. Like
Oh, the
if
trilemma. Yeah. Yep.
yeah,
Trilemma. Yeah. Yeah. Algorand's the only one that solved that so far, or at least claims to have solved it. Yeah, they don't sacrifice that. So yeah, look that up. I mean, they've got a Turing Award winner as their founder who teaches at MIT, um, or taught at MIT. Now he runs, helps run Algorand. They've got a great team. I think they have like a Nobel Prize of economics on their advisory board. It's just mind blowing, the team that they've got assembled. So yeah.
yeah. And from my personal experience, I think it's important that like many times when we start staking, there are few liquidity pools which have like very high APY. But if the
Mm-hmm.
pools get bigger, there's more money, like the APY reduces. Like so, that is one thing to also note. That depending on like this is DeFi 1.0, where if there is a whale who dumps a lot of money, it's gonna drastically change like
Yep.
the APY for that protocol. Yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes I warn people. I mentioned like sometimes you'll see that 1,500% APY, and sometimes that's too good to be true, and you got to watch out for what's terminology is called a rug pull. Essentially,
Hmm.
it gets hyped up only to have the original creator of that pull all their money out at just their time, and it totally pulls the rug out from everybody else. And you basically lose all your coins and digital asset finance associated with that, which is straight up money. So you watch out for that stuff. Do a lot of research before you invest in anything. And yes, that might cost you a penny here or a dime there in terms of time, because timing is everything. But just really look into what you're buying. Spend weeks before you make any kind of big investment, and get a lot of other people looking at it too, because that's the value I find in a team aspect. I've got my I've got one of my neighbors like helping me there. I got like 90 neighbors, so I'm okay. But I've got one of my neighbors. I bring some of these to his attention. I'm like, just check me on this. Like, am I crazy? Is this real? And then he's like, I don't know, let's try it. And so we kind of gang together and try it. And so far it's been working out. We've been slow and steady. But yeah, it's a noticeable chunk of change, just since I started doing this year.
Yeah, that's so true. And like honestly, from my personal experience, like I lost 50, $100 initially when I was taking on Ethereum, DeFi, and Polygon. And then, like there's a lot of guess is why I'm not staking on other blockchain where I could do it on Sense and still enjoy the staking benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've got to have the way I tell this to people. Don't try to time the market. Don't try to be a millionaire right away. That kind of thing. It can happen for some people. It's actually pretty rare. You see it in the news, but it's pretty rare to happen. But why not earn interest on a smaller amount and build your way up? So if it does crash or go down 50%, you're making 50% interest. And let's say you did that over 3 months. Well, you're back to zero. So, or back to your original investment, I should say. So if you dumped in 1,500, you may have lost 750, but you've earned 700 or 750 back in interest at almost no risk. That's the way I approach it. Don't Polygon's a good one too, Matic. So don't just like go dump like 10 grand into it and check your wallet the next day and be like, oh gosh, I'm down $1,000. Like, or you get that euphoria when like, oh my god, I'm up $1,000. So like, and then it goes up again. And you're like, oh, I could have. You'll drive yourself nuts you'll
Yeah.
absolutely drive yourself nuts. So I actually don't recommend investing in coins unless you're committed to their technology and you're willing to make that, like I mentioned on the tax reporting, as long as you're willing to make that, there it is. Yeah, a 1 year investment. I literally mean 365.001 days, like a full year. Um, that way you can start to build up what we call in the business diamond hands and just hold that hold that coin no matter what. Stop checking it, as opposed to paper hands, which the coins just slip right through. So you gotta have diamond hands, man.
Yeah. That's so important that you mentioned, because like patience is key here, because you might find a coin which gave you like 2x in 5 days, and then suddenly you get a bit impatient and you dump
Mm-hmm.
more, like pump more, because you got like such a great initial return, and suddenly that coin goes like 80% down. So and then you lose, like, so I think like having investing, starting with investing a money which you can afford to lose, just to get that experience and learning, and expecting such high volatility, like just be mentally prepared.
Yes. Yeah, and it'll take months. You might think that, oh, I'm mentally strong and I'll be able to hold on to this. But when you see that 20% dive in an hour, that shakes a lot of people. And you've got to have a built up resistance to that. Some people it takes a month, some people it takes a year, some people never get it. Honestly, some people never get it, and they panic sell and they sell below what they paid for it, and then they're angry and they never want to go back into it. And it's really just the opposite. So Google dollar cost averaging, buy the dip, those kind of things. It's just like stock market. Stocks go up, stocks go down, stocks go up, stocks go down. But overall, it again, this is not financial advice, but it continues to go up in some direction. Why not earn interest along the way to kind of protect yourself from those drops?
Definitely, like dollar cost averaging. Like I learned the hard way, like during a pandemic when the stock market went down, and then I realized, oh, my whole portfolio. But then,
Oh, buy.
if
You're young, man. Buy, buy, buy. Don't ever stop buying. Buy that thing all the way down. Buy it all the way back up. Don't ever stop, especially when they're giving you a gift like that. Man, dump it. Dump it in your
yeah,
401k.
yeah, and what I realized like after a year is, like, if you know like some companies who know their like like they are way down their actual price, like it's like a discounted sale, like Black Friday sale for
Christmas
stocks. And
miracle.
yeah.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
and what is your piece of advice for like people to start identifying what coins to invest? Because we see stories of Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, and people say buy $100, you make a lot of grand. Like, can you throw some light?
Yeah, so I dabbled in Shiba when it was really down because I just saw the trend. I was like, okay, this they're gonna hype this up to I have no idea what, and I know to sell when Coinbase crashes a certain coin, and so certain like SHIB crashed Coinbase. I think it was last month, and
Hmm.
I had dumped like $200 into it, just like your strategy, and it was up more than double. And I tried to get it out, and of course, Coinbase was down on the web, down on the app, and everything. And I was like, okay, good, yeah, I'm going to sell today. Like I'm committed to that. I've made maybe, and I think I only ended up 190 because I couldn't get it out at the height. But I was like, okay, that's cool. I'm going to use that. Pay taxes on it. Pay your taxes, people. And move that into a different asset. I think I maybe bought one share of Solana with it, something like that. Which Solana is a little getting a little crazy right now. But I don't really dabble in the Doge, the Shibs, those kind of coins. They're good if you time it just right and you get lucky. You can definitely make a lot, but you also have to risk a lot to make a lot really really fast. And I'm just going to tell everybody, you've kind of missed that first boat, from where it was a year ago to where it is now. You definitely missed the boat on that. Now that's not to say there's not another boat coming that's going to take it from where it is now to, 3, 4, 5, 10x. But I just feel like that's too risky, and I found these other solutions, um, to kind of do that passive income thing. And the best advice that I can give, ask yourself this, and this is really important. Why am I in such a position in life that I'm willing to risk so much of my money on a guess, on a whim, on a gamble? Who am I, and what do I need to do to make sure, that I am financially secure, that I'm not making these kinds of risks and these kinds of decisions, good, bad, or otherwise? Just ask yourself, how am I doing in life? And do I need to do this? I think that's the bigger question, to really step back and say, do I need to take this risk? Or can I just wait, get my paycheck, make proper investments, do the regular 401k long-term strategy, and then dabble in this along the way. I wouldn't throw my life savings into this stuff.
Yeah. And yeah,
Yeah.
partially like I have been into the Discord channels of this development, and the greed is real. Like
Yeah.
people, like I don't know, like once they get into it, and if they are invested heavily, then they start informing their YouTube friends or influencers. And when they get into it and they dump their original value, like it's also a chain.
In reaction.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So that's the only advice I have is ask yourself, why am I in this position? And is this really my way out? And I think if you think about it long enough, you'll realize that there's safer, more better investments out there.
I see. And like that's a great piece of advice. And I'm gonna wrap up the interview with few like broader questions. I wanted to know your thoughts. So, what are some business opportunities for architects in blockchain and metaverse space?
So right off the bat, I think one of the first ones is the example that I showed with the air quality sensors. So that is something I worked on at DLR Group for what they call a PDG, I think professional development grant, something like that. We called it data streams, and we basically built this with little Arduino boards and Raspberry Pis and stuff, and we set them around the offices. Um, and so I think that it's become something else. It became, after I left, it became Healthy Spaces, and now it's Sonrai or something like that. Full credit to that team for taking that idea further. But this is a whole nother level. This is actually paying the user instead of the user paying for the service. So this is actually a pretty big game changer. It does all the same stuff, but it's really flipped the script. So I think this is a potential way for architects to help the clients make money. Another one that's out there is, of course, we're going to talk NFTs, non-fungible tokens, SNFTs, NFTs, fractional, non-fungible tokens. So you can actually buy real estate. So it might be interesting for architecture firms who do dabble in a real estate portfolio as part of their package to principals or things like that, to invest in, I want to say it's lofty.ai, something like that, and they've tokenized real estate. So I think architects could look into that in terms of development, working with a developer to own pieces of property and get paid rent. It's crazy, but yeah, that's out there. So we will talk briefly about metaverse stuff. So this isn't complicated. Essentially, there's probably no other, well, yeah, there's probably no other industry out there better suited than architects and engineers to build virtual buildings, because that's what we do every single day. We build them for real. And quite honestly, a really good SD model or a somewhat developed DD model, we don't have to worry about gravity and wind and water tightness. Most DD, heck, some SD things are good enough to post out to the metaverse and sell and rent. I think there is a huge market for AEC professionals to develop on that and be able to use it. You see it in the news all the time. There's an NFT of some artist that created glass house on Mars and had one of the Smashing Pumpkins do the background music, sold for $500,000, something like that. So there might have been bit more trickery to that. I'm still kind of questioning how they were able to achieve that so quickly, but yeah, that's part of the future. I think you're going to see that pop up real fast here in the next 6 months and the foreseeable future. That architects will be posting to the metaverse with buildings that can't exist anywhere else, and that's going to really open up the doors from design services, but also real estate services. Yeah, it opens up a lot of crazy doors that nobody sees coming. I don't even see all the doors yet.
I see. So is it like design connected to metaverse, real estate connected to tokenization, operations, and IoT connected to
I can
rewards?
tell
Like
you're a systems thinker. Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah.
that's awesome. And one of the arguments I see is like architects bringing their own mindset into metaverse, but now we don't need to comply with physics laws. So
Code.
or building code. So what are like just want to know your thoughts. What are some things which will make architects provide a lot of value in metaverse compared to like game designers or other 3D artists? And what are some things we should leave behind on the table of our traditional thinking when we are designing this?
Yep. So game designers have been there longer than us, and they aren't bogged down by 10, 20, 30 years of code evaluation, things like that. They have a head start in the virtual world, but I have met some of the absolute most creative architects probably to ever exist, and they have unbuilt work that just blows everything out of the water. Because if it's too unrealistic and you put that in the metaverse, then it kind of ruins the feel. But if it's just believable enough that it's real world, but you've kind of broken the rules here and there, I think those designs are going to just be a little bit better than just glass house on Mars. No offense to that person, but I think I think there's some real value that architects bring that is up and coming here for the metaverse.
I see. And like I could definitely foresee a lot of potential of those like design competitions, uh, proposals which didn't get built, but they are too much to really to believe or doesn't look right to the jurors, but definitely have some design problems they have solved very well and has some value. And
Mm-hmm.
but if we have those as an NFT, uh, my follow-up question is like, what about contextualization?
No, that's yeah. So that's a good question. So let me pull up. We were talking earlier. Um, so for let's say this NFT to actually make it a real building, because it's designed in a way that we still might want to build this. And so this is sort of at the DD level, maybe even SD level. So attached to that NFT, you'll be purchasing 5 1-hour discussions with the architect and design team on how to get started commissioning this design or similar into a real building, right? So that's you're tying design services to certain assets, right? That's what this NFT does, and provides all the metadata, the structural capacity, the size of the beams, the size of the footings, things like that. You get all the BIM information, if you will, on that. So I really think in the context we're talking about, I think that's a way, that's a path forward as far as I'm concerned.
Got it. And also, I think with time we'll see more interoperability between metaverses. Like if you have an NFT asset, you could import it in multiple worlds, but also there might be a need of solution. I'm thinking on like the speckle scale where your dot rhino, dot revit, or dot obj is compatible and in converted with different metaverse format requirements. Let's say dot voxel, dot fbx or something.
Yeah, we
So
could talk about interoperability in AEC. Um, yeah, the second we could talk on this for hours, man. But it's a good point because when you get into the metaverse level, there's already a standardized way of doing things. So I could make the model I want in Maya or Blender or Revit. But if I don't export right and get everything right in how I package the NFT, I can't get it onto the metaverse. I can't make the sale, right? So it makes that for some architecture firms that want to pursue this, it makes interoperability completely irrelevant then. And all they have to do to get paid is go from A to B, as opposed to A to B, convert from D back to C, over to X, back to M. I'm not making this up, like you know what I'm talking about. Only to finally get to Z as an output. And sometimes Z is paper. And so it just wipes that clean and says, build me this design that like the design I just pulled across the screen a second ago. We want to talk about that. You get paid in crypto. That crypto is now the fuel for your engine or your vehicle, if you will, your new instruments of service. And I'd love to talk to the AIA about that. New contracts for specifically, I can't remember what part of the contract it is, 11 or something, that's instruments of service. And use the NFT language as that backbone, as that vehicle to push us into the future.
That's awesome. Actually, I'm excited for the AIA conference in Chicago this year. So I want to know your perspective. If, let's say, I'm in an architecture firm, I'm very passionate about NFT, metaverse, blockchain. Like, what do you think the architecture firm should approach in terms of value addition? Because it is possible that the client doesn't know the few business opportunities or the value add-on. Like, so about the awareness and about the value, like how can we make the best pitch?
I've given this a little bit of thought, and it's kind of the same thing that we do with our clients now. Whether it's a school client, we try to educate them to what we're seeing out in the industry, the trends we're seeing, the projects we're doing, because each client might be doing one project, but our firm is doing 100 projects, and 50 of them might be similar in scope and size. So we can bring that expertise in. As far as introducing NFTs and blockchain, it might be a little early. I don't know. There's probably some firms out there that have already started to trigger this. You know, I'm one of them, but it's yeah. I don't know that there's an answer for that yet. But it's really educating the client on what's out there. That's getting educated ourselves, and that's kind of my message today: is to learn to never stop learning. There's always something new under the sun, and be passionate about it, and it'll take you far.
Got it. Yeah. And we are also like developing that in ArchiDAO, which I'm part of.
Mhm.
It's We have like uh, awesome clients in metaverse and physical digital bridge space. And I want to know your thoughts on like DAO in AC. Like, what are some new companies or new DAOs like which can break the barrier?
Um, Everything, like every single part of the business could be increased and could be better from a decentralized standpoint. I don't know. I'm just going to throw one out there. It's not a complete thought, but I had thought about it before. And it has to do with like kind of buildings. If you were to componentize them, um, and say, okay, this building was 2 stories tall. It used this exact elevator, and really capturing all that data and being able to sell it. Now, there's licensing issues with that and the AI contracts and things like that. But well, in the physical world, there's a contract that prevents you from doing that. I don't know how far into the digital world that extends, because it's a very old written contract, and it has no idea what a decentralized autonomous organization is. So being able to execute, hey, I need the elevator we used on this. I need the staircase we used on this. I need the concrete mix design I used on this. I need the steel from this project, and be able to just permissionless grab all those components and build it. Wow, it would take BIM, it would leave BIM behind. I mean, it would be a whole nother level of like actual real information that's out there, as opposed to being ephemeral and we're making it along the way. It exists, but we're kind of making it up as we go because we don't know exactly. But in the new world, it would. Things get built. So that's my first initial take. BIM families would be another one. Um, I, I wrote on one of your posts, I had something about being able to, instead of working for a company, everybody's like more contracted by NFT, because maybe I want to work on a big stadium in another country, but I don't want to work for that firm. I just want to work on a
Uh,
project, right? And so how do you NFT that relationship, that contract, and that can be done through a DAO. So it's not even architecture, but architecture services, and not even architecture services, but like talent pool of architects, like a process that finds talented architects that have tons of stadium experience. They only want to be a stadium designer. They don't care if they're part of the company. They just want to be part of the team. And that would work really well for a lot of architecture firms, because you could get a really like smart architect that knows more than your whole team, and you don't have to pay them health insurance. You don't have to contribute 401k. They just want to work on that cool stadium project and then be gone. Date one to date 100, whatever that is. So that's a way to think about it. I'm telling you, like everything under the business model, everything could change.
Ryan, that's super interesting idea. And like I follow Balaji Srinivasan, and
Mhm.
like he was talking like for this era we had like attention based economy, advertisement based model. Like a future decade we will see like task based economy. So like let's say you want to design a stadium task, and like people who are passionate about it like make DAO, or like make a small group, and then they can deliver the service, and then a subsection of that group is interested in like stadium design in other place, and those goes and organically grows. So I think like he also mentions about network state, which is like another interesting like cloud cities, and then how you make architectural communities. So it would be like very interesting idea where there's a global architectural community DAO, and then sub DAOs of various task-based purposes, and it's like a global fund. I don't know.
Yeah, or it could just, if a firm's looking to do this now, because that might be a little bit. It's totally possible now, but that might be a little bit beyond the leadership team that's usually in charge of these firms that can do this. Um, they need a blockchain 101 before we ever get to that. Um, but they're really smart people, and they're really smart business people that run these things, so they can figure it out. But if they wanted to step smaller into that, why not go the reverse way and use your internal people that are on a team, want to do that stadium, and when the project finally gets the permits, that goes out for bid, you take that Revit model, you make it into an NFT, and you give it to the team, and that becomes your architecture portfolio, and your resume is still a resume, but it QR codes to all these NFTs that you own. Not just, I worked on a stadium, I did construction documents on it, blah blah blah. But it's an NFT now that you can give to your next future employer, or your next team, or whatever, and say, yeah, I worked on that project. Here's the proof. It's not just two words on a resume.
Yeah, and it would be awesome. Like I know software like BIM can track like the amount of hours an employee worked on a
Gotta have
particular.
that. Yep.
Yeah. So what if like you know all the contributors of that particular Revit model or
Yes.
project, do fractionalize ownership of it, and like if that you mint it on the metaverse and that blows up and everyone is reusing it on different metaverse or various areas, you get royalties for like on the usage.
Sure. The CEO might cringe at that idea, but it might be, instead of financial royalties, it might be, again, just to start it off easy. The second you add money, you add taxes, then you add a CPA, and everything gets really expensive. But if it's, what's the word? Not fame, but credit. If that royalty is paid in credit, I think that's okay, because you are being paid somehow a salary or hourly already. But I love the idea. Don't get me wrong. But in order to just, what is the simplest way a firm could do this? I think that firms now, I have no idea if anybody's doing it. It doesn't sound like anybody is, because otherwise I probably would have come across it by now. But I'm just one guy. Is to NFT their projects at the end of their project. As a matter of fact, you know what? I got a project coming up. I am going to NFT a project here in March. Tell you what, I'll just do it. Actually, I could actually do one right now. So maybe in the next couple of days, I'll show people what that looks like. And that'll be, I'll have to talk to the boss man about this, but that's something like this where, again, not to hit Algorand up, but Algorand, it's only like 0.001 algo to make this. So I'm totally going that direction. I don't want to pay $100 and then potential mistake on ETH. So I'll probably create something like this and then deliver it to the team. There is a way that I can collect those hours. We use a Jira, so I can just quickly look up those hours and type them in and get that metadata into that NFT and start to kick this off. And maybe that's our next presentation next year is DAO and then NFT, and the whole conversation is about delivering an NFT like this. Well, obviously, it'll be a building, not an award, to the team that worked on it. And we can start off easy. 3D model, square footage, height of building, materials used, team members, time it took, contractor, consultants used, like a baseball card. That's literally what it is, like a baseball card of information. That's the way I look at NFTs usually. Yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm also like interested in NFT DAO, and I don't want to plug much about ArchiDAO, but like we got Crypto Barista. So they did NFT of barista folks and did fundraising, and now they're starting a coffee chain in New York, and they have like location in Manhattan for that like NFT backed new coffee chain. And like we are doing the physical digital bridge. But I think there are opportunities where like we could uh, like the open source data sharing model in AEC is not working, like from my knowledge. Like
It's
everyone is
not.
secretive about BIM data and like the proprietary grasshopper scripts or whatever. But what if like we anonymize that and like learn some like same model as we got from like air pollution or IoT data, where you share your drawings, we anonymize it, and you got reward tokens for sharing, something on those lines. If you can translate and reward for the data, it would be interesting.
Yeah. It's just going to take people like you and me to kick that off. Once again, I'm sure I absolutely totally believe that there's somebody else doing it somewhere in some other state or some other country. Yeah, I think it's time we get on this. So we didn't even explain what a DAO is to people. So I can give like the 30-second how I explain it to my 5-year-old kind of way. So imagine autonomous organization is almost no different than, let's say, like a jukebox, like a digital jukebox, not one that like grabs the CD or the record and then starts playing, but something that has access to the internet, and people put money into it for something of value to get out of it. So essentially, yeah, it's like a digital jukebox. There is necessarily no one running it. It's self-autonomous. Once again, I don't have to be there to change its oil or keep plugging it back in or things like that. It requires an internet and a power source. And a DAO doesn't even require a power source technically, because it's all web-based. I mean, it assumes the power is going to be there, and it requires basically zero maintenance. It is permissionless, and I put a coin into it, and it spits something out, and that's all it takes. I'm not there. I'm not present to make that transaction as the owner.
I must admit, like your 5-year-old definition, like it's better than I can find anything on Google. Like you explain it very well.
I have kids, so that helps a lot, man. They understand it, in a different way. So when you can explain it, you always hear the expression like movies and stuff. Explain it to me like I'm 5. And so I've really gotten used to that. I still dabble really deep down the rabbit hole in the technical understanding of things, the coding of it and all that stuff. But then I also have to really step back out again. And so thank goodness I have kids that I can explain it to, because they ask me that. They're like, what are you talking about, Dad? What is this circuit board over here? What is this? And I have to like, oh, you don't know what Python is. So I'm going to say a bunch of gobbled words in order to make this code work, in order to make that piece move that piece. They're like, oh, okay, I want to learn that. When you break it down like that, then you get a lot more interest. You get a lot more honey, or flies with honey, than you do with vinegar.
Nice. What like I had a discussion with Ian the other day about like gamifying software, AEC software. So I'm just thinking like if we can explain this complex terms to a 5-year-old, like we could also develop software interfaces which are like very clickable and awesome to use. So
Mhm.
the final section is a rapid fire round for
Okay.
you, and it's like totally informal, non-technical. You will have like 5 to 10 seconds to answer it, and you got to make
I'm
it
good at
brief.
these.
Oh, you're good. All right, let's see. Uh, which city is in your travel bucket list?
Oh, I want to go back to Iceland. I want to hit up Japan, and I want to say hello to a lot of friends down in New Zealand and Australia. Those are the ones that immediately come back to memory. I do want to hit Europe up again, but those first.
I see. Uh, what is one technical or business book which made a big impact in your life?
So I have a book for every year, and I'll just go back to the last 2 years because I have 10 seconds. But the book of the year this year is called "What's Your Problem" by Thomas Wendelson. And last year's book was Trillion Dollar Coach, a story of Bill Campbell. So those two are really hot on the list. If we go back further, the Lean Startup, that's I read that like 8 years ago, and Good to Great by Collins.
Those are amazing. What is your favorite architectural or urban experience?
Um, ooh, Seattle was really cool because my wife and I got lost and we ended up finding a lot of cool places. And we were walking the whole time. It was great, very walkable city. Um, my wife and I also drove in a circle around Iceland, and to see the absence of billboards and wires everywhere and stuff like that, it was absolutely incredible experience. So many waterfalls and things like that. Iceland was is really on the top of the list. If you haven't gone there, barring COVID, go check it out.
I see. How does a day in your life look like?
Get the kids ready in the morning. Get to work. I am usually scheduled in every single hour. I'm on about 150,000 square feet of projects every day. So one's under construction, one's under design. Then I go home. I create some technology roadmaps for a couple different companies in my spare time for Architect Machines and research. Spend time with my kids when I do get home. See my parents, and travel as much as possible.
I see. And do you have a utopian or a dystopian vision for AI or blockchain in AC?
Oh, yeah, I don't know that we're quite at the Terminator level of AI. I keep hearing stories about it, but to actually see that come true would, I don't know that we're there yet as a species. But very optimistically, I'm seeing a lot of cool things that can be done with AI and machine learning. Um, it's going to be a while before that goes south. So I'm not too pessimistic. I'm a very optimistic person. So I think there's a huge future for that.
If you had unlimited time and resources, what is one startup idea you wish you could work?
Um, so this one's going to take longer than 10 seconds. Um, I'd probably start my own like factory, right? Like this whole like this idea of architect machines, which I came up with 10 years ago, combining the soul of an architect, but the brains of a machine, and combining those, using that to really chase all these things down. Not all of them, but get ahead of this NFT thing, and help architects and help others produce with that. I'd love to have my own robotics factory because again, architect machines, like that's another kind of play on words there. I think that'd be fantastic. Yeah, and I think I would just be an influencer that has like Batman and Iron Man level gear, you know.
Yeah, we'll just go to that architecture machine factory and get cool stuff fabricated and built.
Yep.
Yeah. And uh, what is your piece of advice to your younger self, or architectural students or young professionals who are interested in tech and AC space?
Um, yeah, always keep your chin up. Find a group of people or a firm that you want to make music with, and that the firm and whoever you're working with or working for, they value your lyrics, that they value what you bring to the table, and you'll know right away if they do or don't. Eventually, I guess I should say you'll know whether they do or they don't, and if it's not working out, it's a lot easier to cut that tie sooner and go to somebody that does appreciate you. So that's the best advice I can give out there.
See, is there anything else which we didn't cover in this interview and you like to share?
Yeah, we touched on a lot of topics. I think we're good, man. There's always something else. Don't get me wrong, but I think we have to let the gears continue to turn on everything we've gone through in the presentation. So, and there's a ton more. That is the highlight reel. I mean, we haven't even really dived into any of that yet. So,
Yeah. And for all the audience who are listening or watching, like, feel free to comment on what next topic you want Ryan to talk about, and I'll definitely take into the considerations. And lastly, thanks a lot, Ryan. It was a great interview and hosting experience for me. Like, there were like ideas where I like exploded, and it's I think we have a bright future, and it inspires me to like host people like you and having those kind of thoughts being shared out in the public, because there are not a lot of people talking about this blockchain in AEC space.
yeah, no, thanks for having me. This has been fantastic. Keep posting on LinkedIn, man. You got some great posts. I follow you. It's fantastic. So, yeah, great to be on the show. I look forward to being on it again.
Thank you. Have a nice rest of your day, Ryan.
All right, you
Bye bye.
too. Take care.